Thunderbolts is the final film in MCU Phase 5, ending the most up and down phase of the entire MCU. So let's see if the MCU is dead or if the MCU is back by ranking the 6 movies of Phase 5 on this tier list. And we're gonna start with Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. This was at one point a movie people were very excited for, and boy did it fail in spectacular fashion. Let's start with Kang the Conqueror, the guy who was gonna be the next Thanos. Quantumania does such a terrible job at setting up Kang as the next big bad, because we really don't learn much about him at all. We know that he's destroying entire timelines, he has super advanced technology, and while he feels conflicted about all the worlds he has destroyed, he still thinks it's the right thing to do. There's no outlined motivation as to why Kang is destroying these other realities, or anything to indicate how much this affects him, or really anything relating to his origin. He just says a bunch of vague stuff about how many realities he's destroyed, or how many Avengers he's killed. Like, congratulations bro, you killed Thor, so did Taika Waititi. It's not that impressive. And some might argue that they were planning on going into detail about Kang's origin in the future Avengers films, but that's not an excuse at all, because while they were making Ant-Man 3, they should have focused on making Kang a good villain for Ant-Man 3, not a future Avengers movie that now is never happening. But even outside everything relating to Kang, the overall story of the film and the different character arcs within are all so lackluster. Over the course of this Ant-Man trilogy, they've completely ruined the character of Scott Lang. In the first film, Scott was a guy who was really down on his luck, but he had a good heart. And over the course of the film, he proved himself as a very intelligent hero. But then in Ant-Man and the Wasp, they removed his intelligence and turned him into a buffoon.
Look how they massacred my boy.
And finally, in Quantumania, they took away the hero part of Scott. His entire character arc is learning to be a hero again, for some strange reason. Scott is having a bit of a victory tour after saving the day in Endgame, and his family is harassing him because he hasn't been doing enough, and this causes a rift between him and Cassie, because she wants him to be a hero, even though he's already a hero. So this story feels like a complete regression of the character. And the other sides of this story are dreadful to go through as well. We follow Hope, Janet, and Hank on their little adventure, and their family squabbles are so underdeveloped and lacking of any real conflict. Like, I seriously don't need to know about the times that Janet got freaky with Bill Murray. Okay, I don't need that in my Marvel movie.
It's called hentai, and it's art.
What was maybe the biggest talking point of Ant-Man 3 when it first came out was its visuals, because it is just a huge CGI fest in all the worst ways possible. It's no secret that a lot of recent Marvel projects have felt unfinished because the studio doesn't dedicate enough time and resources to its VFX teams, and this film is maybe the biggest culprit of that. There are so many shots that just look butt ugly. The Quantum Realm might have a bunch of colors in it, but the lighting is so dark that it makes everything look like gray sludge, and all the environments and characters and everything feel so artificial and fake, and the cinematography is not helping either. There is really nothing creative or interesting with the visuals at all, and that extends to the action scenes as well. Most bad Marvel films can be saved by really cool and creative fight scenes. Doctor Strange 2 is a really good example of this, but every single action sequence in Quantumania feels so generic. They punch and shoot and punch. There's not a single fight sequence that has the sauce of the first Ant-Man film. And also, there's the Ant-Man versus Kang fight. Initially, this fight seems like a really good finale. Scott's getting whooped, but that adds some actual stakes to the story. But the problem is that Scott just lets Kang disable his suit. He just lays there and lets Kang curb stomp him. Ant-Man's whole thing is being able to shrink and grow on the fly. That's what gives him the advantage in these fights. But because the story needs Scott to lose for the one cool line they put in the trailer, they have to dumb him down again.
I don't have to win. We both just have to lose.
But Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania isn't all bad. I think the cast members all around do a good job, especially Katherine Newton as Cassie. But there's one character in particular I want to talk about.
MODOK!
I know everyone dogs on MODOK, but I'm sorry. I love this dude. Everything about him is so terrible in a way that honestly makes me kind of love him. I love the cheesy flashbacks to the first Ant-Man film. I love his cursed CGI face and little itty bitty limbs. And I love his stupid, underdeveloped story about learning how to not be a dick. MODOK is terrible. and I love him. I'm saying it now, he's my favorite Avenger.
And at least I died an Avenger.
But still, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is a rough way to start Phase 5 of the MCU. It's just kind of a failure in every way, so it's gonna have to go in D tier. And it seems like the MCU might be dead. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 does a lot right, but maybe my favorite part of the film is how it wraps up this team of Guardians by giving each member their own unique story arc. Mantis learns that she needs time away from the Guardians. All her life, she only ever did things other people wanted her to do. So at the end, she decides to leave and find her own place in the universe. Nebula finishes her overarching multi-film arc. In Guardians 3, she's a lot more of an empathetic character. She found the family she always wanted, and Nebula winds up the leader of nowhere. Drax gets to become the dad he was always destined to be, and doesn't have to live the life of a destroyer. And Groot, okay, Groot doesn't really have a story, but he doesn't really need one. He's Groot. He's Groot. But the two characters with the biggest character arcs are of course Star-Lord and Rocket Raccoon, who I would call the co-leads of the movie. Rocket has this really beautiful story of facing his past and growing to accept who he is. In the past movies, we see him be really sensitive to what people call him. He doesn't like to be called a raccoon or a vermin or a monster, because inside that's what he thinks about himself. He thinks he's a creep. He thinks he's a weirdo. He keeps asking himself, what the hell am I doing here? And he feels this way because of his past. During Rocket's well-timed and beautifully executed flashbacks, we see all the terrible abuse he went through at the hands of the High Evolutionary. He constantly told Rocket that he wasn't perfect enough, that he was less than, and Rocket internalized that after failing to save his friends. But after seeing Lila, Floor, and Teefs in a dream sequence, after saving all the people and animals in the High Evo's cages, and after outsmarting High Evo time and time again, Rocket fully understands that while he isn't a perfect life form, that doesn't make him the abomination that he thought he was previously. He now fully accepts what he is, and delivers the singular best line of the entire film.
The name's Rocket. Rocket Raccoon.
Peter Quill also gets a pretty compelling story arc. Star-Lord is a character who has grown a pretty serious dependency issue. After losing his mom, Yondu, and now Gamora, he's holding on to the Guardians way too tight. And Peter fell into this drunken, depressive episode because he feels like he keeps losing everyone he cares about. But after talking with Mantis, she reminds him that Peter still has family on Earth that he hasn't connected with. And after nearly dying to get the Zune that Yondu gave him, Peter realizes that he does have to let go. And so he goes back to Earth. It's a really mature way to finish this chapter in Star-Lord's journey, and I'm excited to see where it goes in the future. Also, while everyone in this movie gives a solid performance, Chris Pratt steals the show for me. He's just as funny as always.
Now what? Open the fucking door!
But man, does he sell the more intense parts very well. The High Evolutionary was a very fitting villain for this last installment of this Guardians team. I already talked about how he affected Rocket's story, but he works for the rest of the team as well. Because he's all about perfection and creating the perfect society and the perfect species, blah blah blah. But the Guardians are nothing like that. And you can tell just by how Peter reacts to High Evo's big monologue.
It inspired me to create Counter-Us. I don't care.
The other characters have their own side plots and they add a ton of humor. Kraglin remembers a lesson from Yondu and learns how to fly the Yaka arrow. Cosmo proves herself to be a good dog, and Adam Warlock, who's a brand new baby boy, finds out what's right and wrong in this universe from the Guardians, and eventually redeems himself. Also, Will Poulter's line delivery is insane.
Baby, I will train it in the ways of the Sovereign.
One more step and this weird thing gets it!
Don't be rash.
Visually, the movie is pretty great. It looks like a real movie. It doesn't have the same gray sludge problem that Quantumania had, and these action sequences are fantastic. The previous Guardians films had some absolute heat, but with the way the camera moves and how everything is blocked, all these action bits really stand out. Adam Warlock's initial attack on Nowhere features some really cool flying shots. Star-Lord and Groot fighting the High Evolutionary's goons is really exciting, and the huge final battle features some borderline iconic moments, like Kraglin mastering the Yaka arrow, the big wonder with the Guardians fighting in the hallway, and the High Evolutionary getting absolutely mollywopped by the Guardians.
Okay, we are cooked. Yep, we are absolutely cooked, chat. GG.
Another aspect of the visuals is the costuming. I saw a ton of people criticize the Guardians team suits, but I'm not sorry. These looks are so much better than these looks. They look like an actual team now, and they're comic accurate. I love these looks so much that I have an entire shelf for them on my coveted Hot Toys wall. That's right, I'm a loser. I have almost all the Guardians of the Galaxy figures they've released, except for Groot, who was sadly sold out. The other day, I found a genie, rubbed his belly, and wished for the Hot Toys Groot figure. He said something like, "Get your hands off of me, my name is Jerry," so I should be expecting Groot in the mail any day now. Anyway, the last thing I want to mention about Guardians 3 is that I believe this is the best soundtrack of the entire trilogy. Every single needle drop hits so hard and perfectly fits into their specific scenes. Creep, Crazy on You, Since You've Been Gone, No Sleep Till Brooklyn, and of course, The Dog Days Are Over. These are all fantastic licensed music moments. Overall, I love Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. It perfectly completes the story of the team while delivering great character stories, a unique villain, and some of the best fight scenes of the entire MCU. It's gonna have to go in S tier, and the MCU is so back. Oh boy, the Marvels. This is maybe the most hated MCU movie of this phase, and it's a sequel to another one of the most hated MCU films. Let's talk about the worst thing about it first, and that's the script.
Come on, use your core!
The story, the character dynamics, the villain, the dialogue, it all feels incredibly off. It tries to set up these different character arcs for the three leading ladies, and even a bit of conflict in between them, but when these interpersonal stories aren't completely underdeveloped, they just kinda don't make sense. There's this argument between Carol and Monica, where Monica is upset that Carol never came back to see her after she promised she would, but then Carol drops the knowledge bomb that after the first movie, she destroyed the Kree Central Intelligence that caused a civil war that nearly destroyed the planet, and Carol's explanation as to why she never came back to Earth is because she felt so much guilt that she couldn't bear to come back. But the problem with that is that 1, the Civil War kinda isn't really her fault, and 2, she did come back multiple times. She was there in Endgame, and she wasn't carrying any guilt about plunging a whole civilization into civil war.
Hey, Peter Parker. You got something for me?
While this conflict between Carol and Monica could have been a really compelling thing to include into the greater story, it just doesn't make sense. And it has a really boring conclusion where Monica just forgives her and they're cool now. Also, to properly explain things in the story, like the war between the Kree and the Skrulls, or how Dar-Benn stopped the Civil War, or really anything, the Marvels does an awful lot of telling and not showing. There are so many instances of characters telling the audience what's happening, who that character is, why someone feels the way they do. It just gets boring after a while. The Marvels really does just have one of the most forgettable stories in the entire MCU. And on top of that, it has one of the absolute worst villains. Oh my goodness, Dar-Benn is just awful. Her motivations aren't bad. She wants to save her planet. That makes sense. But her personality is just all over the place, because she's supposed to be this more sympathetic villain who you can kinda understand, but it seems like she gets enjoyment out of destroying these planets, and she's so happy to get a chance to fight the Marvels that she licks her lips like Tom seeing a steak.
Kill yourself!
However, The Marvels isn't the worst movie ever made. There is actually a good bit I enjoy about this film. For one, all three of these actors do a solid job. My biggest issue with the first Captain Marvel film is that they didn't let Brie Larson, who seems like a likable and nice person, give any of that personality to Carol Danvers. She was just a brick in that movie. But here in The Marvels, she seems like an actual person who has a ton of chemistry with her co-stars. Teyonah Parris is fine as Monica. I didn't buy her emotional scenes that much, but she was solid in the comedy. But the real star of the show is Iman Vellani as Miss Marvel. She is so funny. She breathes so much life into this film. She carries the movie on her back. Miss Marvel is a huge fangirl character, and casting Iman, who is a huge fangirl herself, is a really great choice. And because The Marvels is going for a more comedic tone, her line delivery is absolutely perfect.
We're looking for Kamala Khan.
Where The Marvels fails in terms of being a serious superhero movie, it succeeds at being completely wacky and fun. There are so many scenes that are so silly, so enjoyable, and make for a truly unique and enjoyable superhero experience, like the scene of the three leads testing out their powers and switching places, or the musical sequence where Carol is singing, Kamala is thinking about her fanfiction, and Monica is vibing while double fisting drinks, and then there's my personal favorite, when the crew of the spaceship has to evacuate by getting swallowed by the Florkins, and the whole scene is set to the tune of Memory from Cats. Wow. What a film. So while there's a lot to enjoy about the Marvels, it's still a big mess of a film with a really bad script, so it's gonna have to go in C tier. And it looks like the MCU might be dead. I've already talked about Deadpool and Wolverine in my X-Men ranking, so I'll be kinda brief. And this is a good movie, but it's not perfect. The thing I love most about it is that the story is purely character-based. Everything Wade and Logan do in the film is in pursuit of their own individual goals. Wade wants to save his universe and his family from getting destroyed by Mr. Paradox, because he believes that would be him doing something that truly matters. And Logan wants to make up for his past mistakes and prove himself to not be the worst Wolverine. And they both get really satisfying ends to their character arcs. Logan learns that while he can't change his past because it's what made him who he is, he can change his future and carry on the X-Men's legacy by being the hero they wanted him to be, an X-Man. The X-Man. And Deadpool realizes that even though he wasn't an Avenger or an X-Men, he was still important, and his own self-worth is something only he can give himself, and not Happy Hogan or Mr. Paradox or anyone else. And these two character arcs coming full circle in the scene where they're saving the universe, they're working together as a team, and they're blasting a chorus version of Madonna's Like a Prayer, absolute cinema. And the memes that have sprouted from this scene are perfect. Pretty much all MCU films are genre blends. They all have some action, they have some comedy, but the Deadpool films are sort of the premier action comedy films. And while the humor won't work for everyone, it made me chuckle quite a bit. Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman are both solid comedic actors, and they have some really funny line delivery.
Gubernatorial.
There are also so many action sequences. Not all of them are equal. I for sure love some more than others, and they all have issues like the occasional shaky cam or spotty CGI, but there are definitely some highlights like Logan and Wade's fight in the void, their car fight, and all the heroes fighting off Cassandra Nova's goons. While the film is pretty good, it has its issues. For one, it's pretty darn ugly. When I think of Deadpool and Wolverine, I just think the color gray. The whole film is visually bland and artificial looking, and the CGI just isn't up to par. Like, the ending Madonna sequence is really let down by this CGI Wolverine hitting his default animation.
This is awful in every way. If I could kill it, I would.
Also, the villains are pretty mid. Both Cassandra Nova and Mr. Paradox are played by fine actors, but their writing is not very good. They kind of both do things that just don't make sense. But despite its flaws, Deadpool and Wolverine is just a hype movie. Call it key jangling, call it nostalgia bait, I don't care. I've been a Marvel fan all my life, and it's awesome seeing everything this movie did, like Deadpool and Wolverine teaming up, cameos from Blade, Elektra, Gambit, X-23, Human Torch, and a bunch of other familiar villains. And most importantly, Wolverine finally wearing the blue and yellow, and finally wearing the cowl. And boy, does it look magnificent. I really enjoyed Deadpool and Wolverine. It's a perfectly fun and enjoyable action comedy flick that feels like a really sweet end to the Fox X-Men universe. Well, at least it was. So Deadpool and Wolverine has to go in A tier, and the MCU is back. Captain America: Brave New World. A movie that was super controversial for some reason, but I don't know. It was fine. Not flawless, but fine. The action is pretty sick. The whole aerial sequence at Celestial Island has some cool creative bits, and the Red Hulk fight is just peak. Seriously, he was moving like a menace. But the best part about this film is easily its villains. It's 1.5 villains. It's really cool that they brought back Samuel Stearns from the Incredible Hulk film, and as this movie's main antagonist, I think he really works. His motivations are all properly outlined. After the Hulk destroyed Harlem, Ross pinned the blame on him. and kept him locked up. But while locked up, Ross kept promising Stearns that he would free him in exchange for the life-saving heart pills that the leader has made. Stearns' hatred for Ross makes a ton of sense, and his plan of destroying Ross's reputation and his legacy also makes sense. Although, like a lot of this movie, the leader's story is told through a bunch of exposition which felt very lazy, but at least Tim Blake Nelson is very good in the role. And while everyone dogs on this leader design, I actually think it's great. He looks like his brain expanded and burst out of his skull, especially with his messed up eye.
Chicken jockey!
Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross is the best character of the film. Ross's whole story is trying to prove to his daughter that he's changed. After his heart problems, he, ironically, had a change of heart. After Endgame, he sees the importance of superheroes and realizes his past mistakes. So he became president. He's trying to get this adamantium treaty signed, and he's asking Sam to restart the Avengers. And he's doing all of this just to have a walk and to see the cherry blossoms with Betty again. But he still struggles with falling into his past mindset as he continues to take the pills and as the tension rises. The Red Hulk is just a manifestation of who Ross used to be, a big, angry, hot-headed monster. It's also just like really cool. And even though Stearns succeeds in getting Ross to turn into a Hulk, Ross accepting his punishment and serving his sentence shows his growth. And Harrison Ford gives an incredibly layered and powerful performance that I didn't expect out of him. I'm so sad that William Hurt couldn't be here for this movie. He would have been brilliant, but Harrison Ford gave a truly thoughtful performance. A common complaint I hear is that this film should have been a Hulk movie, but I disagree. In the MCU, Ross has been more of a general Avengers antagonist instead of a Hulk antagonist. I mean, Ross put Sam in prison for goodness sake. On this rewatch, I think Sam's story is maybe the weakest part of the film, because while I think Brave New World does a good job at showing us why Sam is a good Captain America, it's not his powers or his skills, it's his empathy and ability to understand and help others. It does a bad job at setting this story up. He doesn't doubt himself for like the first hour of the film. There's no setup for his character arc or anything. But while having a talk with Bucky, he comes out of nowhere with these doubts and fears. It just comes out of nowhere. And when your main character's story is this weak, it kind of brings down the whole movie. So despite the fun action and the great side characters, Captain America Brave New World fails at being a Captain America movie. So it's gonna have to go in C tier. And the MCU might be dead. But before we find out for sure by looking at Thunderbolts, I just want to say, if you're enjoying this video, why not hit that subscribe button? I post videos like this one all the time, and if you're watching this in May, it is currently rankings month, and I'm posting a bunch of fun movie rankings like this one on the channel. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss those, but let's go ahead and look at... I expected nothing going into Thunderbolts, but I pretty much got everything. This is a fantastic film, and to properly talk about why it's so good, I have to include spoilers. One thing going for Thunderbolts is that the filmmakers focused on making the movie great and not only setting up future installments, something other films in this phase failed to do. And the story of Thunderbolts is one I really appreciated, because it's basically just a group of people learning how to be heroes. They're all killers, they're great at fighting, but they don't really save people. Sentry / the Void is an unstoppable threat, and Yelena, Alexei, John, Bucky, and Ava can only stop him and save the day by saving Bob and helping him through his mental struggle as he battles against the Void inside his head. A lot of recent MCU films have been missing the saving aspect. They fight the villains every single time, but we don't actually get to see the heroes saving anybody. And that's what Thunderbolts is all about, and that's why it works so well. Also, it answers a question we've all been wondering for months now. How the hell are these guys gonna beat Sentry? Bob is the new character of the film, and I think he works. He feels a lot of the same emotions the other characters feel: loneliness, meaninglessness, failure, etc. And we see his struggle to deal with those feelings, which is something I think a lot of people, myself included, can relate to. The Sentry is a great character. There's a lot of layers to him, and I'm excited to see him again in Doomsday. Also, Lewis Pullman honestly kinda steals the show. He is phenomenal. Visually, I think this is one of the more impressive Marvel films in recent years. It has this really dark, dingy, dreary aesthetic to it, which perfectly fits the tone of the whole film. A lot of the fight choreography is excellent and really well well filmed, but they absolutely cooked with the void. The all black silhouette with the eyes piercing through is peak character design. Thunderbolts also does a good job at progressing the stories of these characters and ending the story of another. And almost all of the members of the Thunderbolts have some sort of story, or at least have something to do in the film. Yelena Belova finds her calling and people to surround herself with. John Walker and Red Guardian both get to become the heroes they always wanted to be. Ghost. Okay, Ghost kinda gets the shaft. It feels like most of the time she's just hanging around, but maybe she'll get some more story later. And Bucky finds his place in the Marvel Universe. This is honestly the first time he's been a good character since Winter Soldier, and he acts as almost the leader of the team. Also, this entire cast is just phenomenal, especially Florence Pugh. But let's talk about Taskmaster.
What the hell is even that?
Everyone hates this version of the character. Frankly, I do too. And her death is the funniest, most disrespectful thing I think I've ever seen. Ghost pops her in the head and then loots her corpse. A very fitting end to a very bad character. But all in all, What the heck is this? Hot Toys? Oh, and it's from the genie. I think this could be the Hot Toys Groot I wished for. Oh boy. I've been waiting for this thing for... Wait. Oh man, you gotta be kidding me. What the hell am I supposed to do with this? Oh, there's also a note in here. Oh, come on, man. I guess I'll put her on the shelves. She'll go next to Invincible. We finally found someone Invincible can beat in a fight, I guess. It's popular to say the MCU has gone downhill, but if you only look at the movies, that's not really the case. There are some bad ones for sure, but films like Thunderbolts and Guardians 3 are some of the greatest films of the entire MCU. So I'm gonna put Thunderbolts in S tier. And that's my final ranking of MCU Phase 5. And the MCU is officially back. Thank you for watching the MCU Phase 5 ranking. Rest assured, this is only the start of my MCU rankings. I plan on doing phases 1 through 4 on the way to Avengers Doomsday next year, and a whole separate video for the shows, don't you worry. Yep, that's it. Bye.